Some breaking inputs which are coming in where in the crucial Alabama Senate election, it appears that Republican candidate Roy Moore has lost, and it is the Democrat Doug Jones who has won the crucial Alabama polls. Now, the reason as to why this is so significant is because this will have long-term implications in terms of who has the majority in the U.S. Senate. Remember, Roy Moore was the Republican candidate who had been backed very strongly by President Donald Trump, and generally in cases such as this, the candidate backed by the president ends up winning, but in a clear drift of undercurrent which shows that perhaps it's going against President Donald Trump. It is the Democrat candidate who's actually won this particular election, where Democrat Doug Jones has won the Alabama polls. Now, this, of course, is likely to have long-term implications in terms of which way the Senate will, of course, go, and also perhaps in some ways will be looked as a disapproval of the policies that are followed by U.S. President Donald Trump. Roy Moore, remember, was a candidate who had been fielded by Donald Trump. He was backed to the hilt by the U.S. president, but despite that, it is the Democrat Doug Jones who has won the Alabama seat. Now, Roy Moore was a candidate who had also been facing allegations of sexual misconduct, where women had in fact come forth and said that he had preyed upon them when they were just teenagers. He tried to initiate sexual sort of encounters with them when they were just 14, 15 years old. And now the people of Alabama have spoken. They have picked the Democrat candidate Doug Jones, who has now emerged victorious. These are live scenes that we are getting from Alabama. Quite clearly, the supporters of Doug Jones are celebrating, and this of course is a very important and a crucial election. To discuss more on this, we're joined in by our correspondent from the United States, Andy Rosjan. Andy, a significant sort of a result here. The candidate backed by Donald Trump has not been able to come up and beat the Democrat here.
Yes, this is a stunning rebuke for President Trump. The amazing thing here is that Alabama, as you may have said, is a deeply Republican state. It went overwhelmingly for President Trump in the 2016 election. When President Trump picked Jeff Sessions to be the Attorney General for the United States, Jeff Sessions held this Senate seat in Alabama. And when Trump picked Sessions to the Attorney General's office, no one believed that this seat would then go to a Democrat as it has tonight. This speaks a lot to the accusations against Roy Moore involving sexual assaults with children from years ago. These dogged him throughout the campaign. But even so, the Republican Party continued to support Roy Moore, the loser tonight, and Donald Trump was very vocal, especially on Twitter in the last few days, urging voters in Alabama to vote for Moore. So this really is a stunning rebuke for the president and a huge win for the Democrats. Absolutely,
indeed. And with this victory, the majority which the Republicans have in the Senate shrinks to 51-49. And considering that the Senate is up for elections in next year, in 2018, is this perhaps an undercurrent pointing towards a drift where probably the Democrats may end up getting an upper hand in the Senate?
In the Senate, it still could be tough. Actually, the map, as they say, for 2018 still favors Republicans, because next year in 2018, not all of the senators are up for re-election. There are actually more Democrats who are up for re-election next year in the Senate than Republicans, which usually favors the party that has control, which is the Republicans. But what's interesting here is that the Republican senators, the other senators in the Senate who would have had to welcome Roy Moore had he won tonight, all of them uniformly rejected Roy Moore. They did not want him in the Senate, and if he had won, they were already planning tomorrow to start holding hearings among themselves over what to do to possibly kick him back out if he had won. So either way, the Republicans were going to have a tough time whether they won this race or not. But the fact that they did not win and the fact that Donald Trump really lost in his bid to get Roy Moore over the hump and get him elected. That says a lot.
And how will this election, this electoral loss for Roy Moore impact Donald Trump? Does this in some ways also, bring down the clout that President Trump has in fact had? Because this was a candidate that he had personally backed to the hilt.
Well, it'll hurt him in the U.S. Senate because obviously now he has one less supporter of his agenda in the Senate. That's going to hurt. But also on a psychological level, I've got to tell you, there's been so much pushback over accusations of sexual assault and harassment towards women, as you know, here in the United States in the last 2 months. And this is all about what torpedoed the campaign of Roy Moore tonight in Alabama. And it's what's been hurting President Trump now as well. He has been facing these renewed calls to investigate the calls against him for alleged sexual harassment. So this is truly a sign that perhaps American voters are pushing back against Trump in any way they can, and 2018 could be a pivotal time. November of 2018, when these big elections are held next year, could really speak volumes to how Americans feel about Trump.
Leave it there. Andy Rogen, thank you very much indeed for joining us from Chicago and getting us all those inputs. These are live visuals that we are getting of the Democrat supporters of Doug Jones, who have broken out in celebrations. This, of course, is a crucial Senate election. The Republican majority has now shrunk to an absolute sliver. It's 51 to 49 that they lead in the Senate. And when the elections happen in November 2018, it's going to be very interesting to see as to which way the American voters would in fact go, whether they'll back Donald Trump or will it be the return of the Democrats in a majority position.